All right, first movement I'm going to do for today. You know, Ben Patrick, when he was here, he talked to me about the ATG split squat. And I showed him what an ATG split squat looked like when I did it. We had Nsima do it, and we had Ben do it. It looked quite different when Ben was doing it because of how bendy he is. And so he suggested to me that I do it, you know, with my foot up like on a box. I think this height, though, will probably be good, and I can maybe work my way downward a little bit too. What I'm also going to do is going to give myself a little bit of a target on the back leg, and we'll just start out with the thickness of this mat. So we'll just start out with having this be the landing spot of my knee, of my back knee. Now, you know, I should be able to get to the ground with no problem, right? But I'm trying to give myself like a reasonable goal to start out with, okay? So we go here, let me go here and try to, you know, sit into that front knee. Kind of perfect to do this barefoot. Feels good. So kick this over to the other side. So that stretch in that back foot is really nice. And the knee over the toe on the back foot is something that's not really recognized by people that much. But that knee over the toe on the back foot represents a pitcher pitching a ball. It represents a batter swinging a baseball bat. It represents a lot of things. I was going to say a quarterback, but they don't get that low like that usually. But it represents the back leg before the block leg comes out on someone doing a dunk. You know, those shots you see of Jordan. He's sometimes this low with that back leg. Maybe not, he's not in this position necessarily, but that back leg is getting about that low. Before the step, before they take off for the jump, for the dunk that they're gonna do. Might be hard to visualize because you're like, no, they don't dip down that low when they dunk, and you're right, they don't. They only, like before they jump, they only go like here, like they're not very low. But I'm talking about this, where this back leg kind of goes before they start to generate that force. It starts to get really, really, really super low. That shin gets to be like that, even with the ground almost. Do a lot of lifting during the week, and so it's good to have a day that's like a little bit of a tune-up day, fix some stuff. I'll probably turn some music on a little bit here in a second and really get into something, but for the most part today is going to be like just taking it a little bit easier for the most part, I think. That's what I always say. It's not always the way it stays. Sometimes one of the bigger mistakes you can do with a regression is to be too aggressive with them. So this is probably about where I'll take it for today. But I might go down all the way without the blue mat, but kind of nice to have that reference point for now. I don't like putting the fan on. You know, I like kind of like earning a sweat. I also like to earn like a cool down. So if I do put the fan on, it's usually like almost after the workout's over, and my friends are always like, what's the point of that? I'm like, well, now we earned it, you know? But, you know, it is hot in here right now, but it's not like, it's not unbearable. It's not like, it's not dangerous by any means. I like to, you know, in the wintertime, you throw on a hoodie and some sweatpants and stuff, and you want to get sweaty and hot, right? And then in the summertime, for some reason, the second someone gets sweaty and hot, they pull their shirt off and they're standing in front of the fan the whole time. I like getting really warm in my workouts, and interestingly enough, since I'm not nearly as fat as I used to be, I don't sweat that much, or I sweat a lot less. It's been pretty helpful to be less fat. It's kind of cool, you know, when you do grab dumbbells and you go to utilize them for something, you're not even really thinking about it, but you're like, oh, I'll just grab them the 15s, but you really just added 30 pounds. You know, whether you're curling, it's like, okay, yeah, it is 15 per side. But you added 30 pounds to your skeletal frame of whatever the movement is that you're doing. And that's, to me, I think it's like somewhat substantial. Like if you gained 30 pounds, you'd be like, should I gain 30 pounds, right? All of a sudden you gain 30 pounds because you just picked it up. Functional patterns and those guys over there. I'm not trying necessarily to mimic exactly, you know, what they've showed me. I forgot a lot of it. It's very difficult, but I am trying to remember, you know, some of the core principles of some of it. The basics for me, without sharing too much of their stuff, the basics for me are just try to get my body to move. And I want to be able to disassociate my body. So I want to be able to, you know, take my hips and be able to turn my hips this way without having to like move my whole body. You know, so then what does that look like? Okay, well, leave the hips here and then try to turn the body here, right? And now I do have some disassociation with the body. But sometimes in some of my movements, as I've gotten older, you know, sometimes some of these different, you know, movements of the hips, I haven't done anything like that in a long time. Used to certain movements, and sometimes through, you know, certain sports and certain things you would do, you know, even if you're playing football and you go out for a pass, you know, the quarterback might be there, and they might throw the ball kind of down and behind you, and so therefore you have to figure out a way to, first of all, to even be a target for the quarterback, you have to figure out a way to have your shoulders like towards him if you're going over the middle and stuff like that, certain things like that. Or if you're going for an out pattern and you don't turn around very well, well then odds of you catching it. That's why Gronkowski was so good, because he moved like someone who was 50 pounds less than him, and he was able to disassociate the body. And so for me, I'm trying to get into these, you know, these patterns of being able to, you know, like roll my body, have my shoulders go in these sort of kind of figure 8 patterns, as when you're kind of like running or throwing a shit ton of uppercuts, right? You're throwing these uppercuts, boom, boom. You know, you're generating force from each side. Well, how do I generate force from each side? Get back to those sides with balance. Maybe transfer over to the other side with balance to be able to like move a little smoother. Maybe I can just figure out ways to do a little bit of that with the weight, because if the weights made me stiff, maybe the weights can help me be unstiff. The weights got me stuck. The weights pulled my shoulder forward, right? The weights kind of did this. So like my upper body's, you know, kind of stuck in here. Can I take the same principles of weights making me stuck and utilize those poundages, utilize those weights to hang off my skeletal frame to pull me in other directions? I think I can. So, you know, when I'm sitting here like this and I'm thinking about moving this way, well, maybe I can just take that and go here, where normally that would be like hard for me to do something like that because my mobility isn't great. And because my mobility is not great, this tightens up right away. And as soon as I go here, I want to stop because this kind of hurts. But with that counterweight, it didn't hurt at all. With this counterweight, it kind of eased some of that off. So it's like I can use this as a counterweight. I could use this as a teaching tool, and I can use it to pull me. It's like, pull me, you son of a bitch. Pull me this way. Pull me in a rotational way that I don't maybe normally rotate as well anymore, right? And I can have it do a little bit of that. And who knows, maybe I need to practice it more. Maybe I need to work on it more. Maybe I need to learn it more. But I think over time, I think if we use a lot of air, we can get a lot of places too. So like I've been doing a lot of nasal breathing throughout this practice, but I think bigger breathing Woo! Who the hell knows what that'll equal? Gotta equal something. Felt good, a little puddle of sweat going on over here. Woo! Like some good work. I think tomorrow I'll just feel that all lit up through my core, through my back. I've had it like the next day where I'm like, what's sore on me? Like I don't even really know. Something's all tight. Something's all sore. It's just some of those muscles that probably not really getting work super direct with squats, bench, deadlift, sit-ups, overhead press, bent over row, all the different crap I did over the years. Probably doesn't get worked as maybe directly as maybe with some of that mumbo jumbo I just did right there. The best part of the workout right here is like, I'm going to do like one or two more things, and then I'm going to eat. Every time I'm working out, I get about midway or halfway through, and I'm like, what am I going to eat after, when I get done with this? I cooked up a bunch of scallops last night. That was really good. Some scallops and some potatoes. This morning, I made like egg whites and hash browns, and that was really good, and dumped some steak on top of it. That was pretty awesome. And then I had a banana smoothie that I made with some coffee in it. That was unbelievable. I know people think a banana and coffee is probably weird, but it really just acts as like sugar. It doesn't throw the flavor off for me too much. And then just before I got here, I had a little bit of honey and a piece of sourdough bread. I was like, I could probably afford to have a little bit more carbohydrate. Let me have a little bit more carbohydrate. So I chucked down that sourdough. It was good. Delicious. Throw it in the air fryer toaster oven thingy just to get that sourdoughy smell going. And get the bread to be a little warm. been a lot of fun doing this, picking these stones up and stuff like that. I really sucked at it when I first started doing it, and I still am not good. Like, there's still people that are probably 50 pounds lighter than me destroy me on these, and even women that could just destroy me on this stuff too. But I'm learning it, I'm enjoying it, having fun with it. I don't know what some of the stuff weighs that I have. I do know I need to get a little bit more filler for some of these things. Like this guy, a little loose. That one could pick up a little bit more. This guy probably also, maybe probably stick another 20 pounds. And probably both of them really. So I'll do that. But I know some of these other ones, 100, 125. There's that tiny ball there. That thing can't weigh, man, that thing can't weigh more than 90 pounds. I'd be surprised. And that thing, I have no idea. Just have no idea. Maybe you Slater Stone fans know. And then that's just like a rock that's from the side of my house that looked like I could pick up. So I brought it over here. I was like, I'll bring that over. And a couple other things. I got these bricks over here too. So we'll do some carries with these. Just some easy walking, you know. Walking, curling, pressing on one side, give reprieve from the grip, but work other things. Maybe try to take it down to the second cone down here. Get a little reverse curl. A lot of work for the thumbs, a lot of work for the grip, a lot of work for the hands. Swinging around. I have no idea what these are. These must be 30 pounds though, maybe 30 pounds a piece. Woo! Oh, had a bunch. Fucking throw it. Yeah, you just pick shit up, throw it around. Those bricks, you know, I was trying to hold on to them for that whole walk, but just lost the right hand a little bit. Some overhead pressing, just some different movement. It's just fun. Like, some of this stuff just feels awesome. It feels like a deadlift, you know. I think it's easy to probably compare it to something like a deadlift in the gym, but even more useful than a deadlift. Like, deadlift's always like, okay, back flat and let's lift like this. You don't have to follow any of those rules on this. Part of the reason, there's two reasons why you wouldn't want to necessarily do that. The weights are much lower, so you would probably be in a less than advantageous position to lift it if you just tried to squat it only. You want to squat it and use your lower back. And if you watch some of the strongest people ever pick up some of the heavier rocks ever, they have to use their lower back. And yes, they'll squat down there too as well, right? To get it. And they might have to have good mobility to transition it up higher, because they'll squat down with that weight on their lap. But you guys know what I'm talking about. They got to kind of round over, right? It's lower to the ground. The center of gravity is completely different. So how many people do you know that can lift 315 with a barbell, right? Many people. But most people that can lift 315 with a barbell off the ground for a deadlift cannot pick up a 315 pound sandbag. Probably almost all people, unless they're, you know, throwing 315 around like it's nothing and doing 10 reps with it or something like that. But it'd be rare. It'd be rare for you to see someone barely pull 315 deadlift and then walk over to 315 pound sandbag and pick it up and get it like above their waist. It'd be very difficult for them. So the weights that you use with sandbags is typically a lot less. So another reason why you don't really need to worry as much about that flat back, some of those flat back rules that you might want to have in mind for deadlifts. You don't necessarily have to have them in mind for deadlifts, but what I always told people is I don't like to see people I don't like to see their back continually round during a deadlift. So if their back is rounded while they deadlift, that's one thing. But if their back continues to fishing pole, that fishing rod thing, that's not, and it gets more and more bent during the deadlift, that's not great. That's not what we're looking for. I do like 1 or 2 more rounds of this, just hike up all these things and just throw them in the back of my truck, and that'll probably be it for today. Show you what I do with this big giant metal thing here. I'm just going to do some walking and some twisting with it. One of my favorite movements recently is to do some squats with this guy here, with this sandbag. And you know, I can actually squat a little lower with the sandbag because the counterbalance weight kind of shoves me into like some different positions. So I might be able to move, you fat bastard. Let's see. Might be able to even squat down to this bag over here. Something else I discovered, and this is really weird stuff, but like I could probably practice this in like a creek bed or something, or like a rock quarry type thing. But I noticed that like when I'm down in here doing this kind of stuff, how this like feels like good movement practice to me, especially because I can kind of rest on each one of these and I can get, you know, different foot positions from moving around on here. I remember Human Garage mentioned this to us when he was here. Gary from Human Garage mentioned this to us. He's like, this is like one of the best activities you can find, like either climbing up the side like of a hill and using your shoulders and wrists and hands and stuff, or, you know, finding different rocks because they're different shapes, you know, and I can get on these different shapes. They're circular, right? And again, I know all this stuff looks weird and you're like, what? How come you're always trying to show us such weird shit? Can't you just show us the bench and the squat? And I love all that stuff. Still super practical. And yes, you should still utilize that stuff. But it's kind of nice to learn other practices, and as you get older, be able to put some of this stuff into play. I went on a hike, Lake Berryessa with my wife, and we took this route that I had never taken before, and we were in this like rock bed, and she was able to traverse it pretty easy. She had a little bit of weight on from having some water with her, and she had something in her hand, and for me to traverse it with something in my hand was like too weird, you know? So I had to get down here. She was able just to go on her feet, and I had to get down because I was losing my balance. And my wife is someone that has stayed attached to her sport. She was a swimmer when she was young. She still swims. I was someone that did some sports when I was young, and then I power lifted, but didn't keep really the athleticism. So for me, when I was standing on those rocks, when I go to stand up all the way, my body goes, because it's like, you're not balanced, dude. Like, your eyes aren't cool with this. Your body's not cool with this. And so I go here, and then I have to kind of get down in here. And I was able to do it. It was still fun as hell. I was like, I need to come back here, and unfortunately, I need to work on this, get better at this. Not everybody will be able to go through the same things that I did, because I pushed it so far one direction, lifting the weights that I lifted. Anyway, sandbag squats. Pick her up, get her in good position, and now squat down. Look how low. sure how that, maybe like that. Anyway, yeah, so just another movement in the arsenal, and if I'm not squatting quite that low, I can take it down to squat onto this 125er down here, and I can kind of keep the bag in my lap if I want, or I can take the bag and go here, and I can get one of these nasty grips on it here and squeeze it. You know, like if you're a wrestler or grappler, this might be kind of cool for as you're like working other movements, you're also working on nice snug grip while you're staying loose and not breathing like a pig.